Place your Stanley Cup playoff bet with Sports Interaction. Before the game starts, live in play, or how your favorite player will perform. Doing it right since 1997, Sports Interaction is Canada's sportsbook. With the most competitive odds, Sports Interaction makes it easy to deposit, play, and cash out. Join now and see all sports betting has to offer. Head to sportsinteraction.com/SDPN. That's sportsinteraction.com/SDPN. 19 plus. Please play responsibly. A few more news and notes in the National Hockey League, some coaching stuff, and a John Gibson note. Pretty much a couple of hours after we recorded our episode on Tuesday, Bruce Cassidy found himself a job with the Vegas Golden Knights. What were your thoughts on Bruce Cassidy jumping to the Vegas Golden Knights organization?
Well, he had a ton of leverage, right? I mean, we were surprised to some degree when he was fired by the Bruins, but his that unfortunate bounce was rather favorable because there was a lot of teams lining up to speak with him, to negotiate with him. He got a long-term deal in Vegas, which I think is positive for Bruce to have it, for his family, obviously, but to have a chance to be the guy that oversees the next phase of this. It's no longer an expansion team, right? I mean, they've aggressively turned things over on a player standpoint. He's already their third head coach to go into the Golden Knights and, trying to win a Stanley Cup. I think it's an ideal team for him. You could point to so many positive player developments during his time with Boston. I mean, Patrice Bergeron was already a legend, but I think you can find solid evidence that over the last 6 seasons under Cassidy, he took strides and was maybe used a little differently in a more offensive role as he aged and put up a lot of points in that role. Brad Marchand developed into one of the best left wingers in the entire league under Cassidy. And so I think to get a chance to go in with some of the Vegas experienced players that he'll put in a system that is going to deliver them back to being a top team. I think this year missing the playoffs was a blip for the Golden Knights. And, Bruce didn't want to leave Boston, mentioned that he had a Bruins tattoo on him, but, he's going to get a raise and a lot more security. And he ended up in a pretty darn good franchise to now chase a cup elsewhere.
Yeah, just with the pieces that they have at different parts of their lineup, like the Vegas Golden Knights, as long as they're healthy, they should be a playoff team heading into next year. And they've got themselves one of the better coaches to lead them to that point. I had no idea about the Bruins tattoo, though.
He didn't. He wasn't being literal, I think. He just said
okay.
It was when he had that Zoom with reporters on his way out in Boston, and he just mentioned that, he'd spent 13 or 14 years in the organization, starting with their AHL affiliate, and, he wanted to stay there. Like, it wasn't his choice at all to move on. And so, I bet he's already turned the page now, though. That was a week ago he made that comment. Now he'll be all in on finding ways to get the Golden Knights back to a contender status.
Let's get to John Tortorella, because as of us recording right now, he has not taken the Philadelphia Flyers job, but reports are out there suggesting he's at least been offered, or at least they are talking. Both sides, the Flyers and Tortorella, are talking. It could be likely by the time this episode comes out, that deal could be done. Who knows? But right now, there's some chat. There's some chatter going on between both of those sides.
Yeah, our buddy Kevin Weeks has been all over this for a good week now or so. And I think at this stage, it's fair to say if John Tortorella wasn't the next coach of the Flyers, that means something went wrong on the 1 yard line or inside the red zone anyway, in terms of closing off the finer points of his deal. I mean, look, there's so many moving parts of these things. I mean, first of all, there's teams that are all interviewing from the same pool of candidates, and there's so many out there. And then you do actually have to finish off dot the I's and cross the T's of an actual contract, which goes deeper than just money and years. There's different aspects of that. But yeah, I mean, all signs point to Tortorella landing in Philly. I think you're starting to see a little bit more clarity on the market. I would think that Jay Woodcroft, based on Ken Holland's comments at the end of the season, is likely to stay in Edmonton. And so some of these jobs are getting firmed up, and I think all of them should be filled by the time we get to the draft. And that's getting close, Julian. We're coming to your hometown in the very near future. I'm already thinking about plans for dinner and stuff there. I mean, we're almost there, bud.
Plans for dinner, huh? Okay, all right. Are you? Is there a place you want to go? I mean, unless you were thinking of go with somebody else. I was hoping we kick it At least one night.
Well, there's a SDPN appreciation night I saw. There's an
Yes.
SDPN lunch I saw, like a staff lunch. I
Yeah.
got all these calendar invites, so it's this is real and it's happening.
Yeah, you gotta check your email. I know you don't like checking your email. You might have to check some of your email for some of them.
Text me, please.
Okay, we'll definitely do that. We'll make something work. Last thing here, we spoke about John Gibson and the potential of him being traded. An update on his situation. He went on record to the Athletic saying that he is not asked to be traded. I just want to know generally your thoughts on how this John Gibson situation is developing now.
Well, I mean, he doesn't want to be traded, but he's only got a limited no trade clause in his contract. It doesn't mean he won't be traded by the Ducks. I think the stage they're at, it just makes sense for them to at least gauge the market to see what might be out there, to see if something might make sense for them. I mean, they traded away 3 pretty key members of their team in Raquel, Lindholm, and Manson at the deadline, at a time when I think there was at least some interest potentially for those players to stay and sign extensions. Gibson's case is a little different because he is under contract for the next number of years. A decision doesn't have to be reached. I mean, there's no reason they can't go status quo and bring him back, but they're turning things over. They're getting younger, and it wouldn't surprise me at some point in time if that included moving on from Gibson, but it doesn't mean it has to happen this summer. And really it's all tied together, right? It's not the deepest goaltending market in free agency. I think he's another option potentially for teams that if they say maybe you've identified Billy Husso or Darcy Kemper as your target, and if those players end up somewhere else, you might have to go down that road. I mean, that's how Kemper essentially ended up in Colorado. The Avalanche were dealing with Philip Grubauer right into the first day of free agency last summer. They had talks with Frederik Andersen. Ultimately, Andersen couldn't wait to see how things developed with Grubauer and took an offer from Carolina. Musical chairs, you see what's happening here. Grubauer ultimately signs a free agent deal with Seattle. And then the Avalanche had to move to another plan and gave up Connor Timmins and a first-round pick, I believe, to bring in Kemper. It's been a great move. When Kemper's been healthy in the net, he's put up great numbers for that team. With telling, they went back to him in Game 1 of the Cup final after he missed the 4 wins essentially over Edmonton in the Western Conference final. And so I think that maybe Gibson comes into play if that musical chairs game gets spinning, on July 13th. But I don't have any info to suggest he's imminently being traded. And, he squashed at least the notion that he'd asked for that trade. I just think it's important to underline the team could still move him to one of the teams that aren't on his no trade list should they make that decision.